and then we'll see where we're at. So first up is Mr. McLean, and we're going to start the clock. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Minister, welcome officials. I'm going to start with a little leeway here, unless I have to reference something with this question. But Minister asked you a question in the House 2 days ago about oil that comes in from Russia to Canada at this point in time, and the approximately $500 million per year that we are funding Russian oil and Russian oligarchs and Russian economy and Russian war machine.
Sorry, point of order. I hate to interrupt. I'm not sure this has anything to do with the estimates necessarily.
Okay, let me reference, as I said, I will reference the...
The member has a right to ask the questions he wants. If it bothers the Liberals, that's their problem. They can counter in their questioning, but to interrupt the member when he's asking questions, I think is not acceptable.
And I will say that generally I've allowed a fair bit of latitude in the questions, letting each person control their direction they want to take the questions. That being said, we are here to study supplementary estimates C and B, and if we can keep within. But Mr.
Sure, let me be relevant here,
stop
Mr.
the
Chair,
clock there for a minute.
Yeah, we'll refer to the net zero accelerator funds that are being allocated here, and we'll talk about the net zero carbon emissions that would be provided with cleaner energy than we have coming from Russia at this point in time. So we can address the amount of oil that's coming from Russia to Canada. I know that you tried to correct me in the House and said that we haven't imported crude since 2019, and I rose in a point of order today to make that correction. And I was hoping to give you the opportunity to say that you actually meant we're not going to import any Russian oil into Canada. Minister, would that be the case, first of all?
So what I said in the House was we have not imported crude oil from Russia since 2019. That is true. And subsequent to that, we have banned the import of Russian oil. We added to that the import of petroleum products that are derived, that are either partly or wholly refined, including things like lubricants and motor oils. And we now have put into place, or in the process of putting into place, a ban on those as well.
Thank you, Minister. Much appreciated. The issue, of course, is with the ascent of Russian oil production, large international companies have vacated Canada and sought opportunities elsewhere, including in places like Russia, because of a restrictive regulatory environment imposed by this government on Canadian resource development. Do you see now the folly of the position of restricting responsibly developed, environmentally produced oil in Canada, and what will fill the void on the world stage and the impact of the money flowing with that void being filled?
Well, I would take issue with the restrictive resource development, and we put into place a better process, an environmental assessment process, to ensure that good projects actually can proceed, but that we are actually looking at environmental impacts on the way in a manner that the previous system did not. I would say to you that there are many projects across this country in all kinds of natural resource areas that are moving either through that process or through provincial processes. You will have noted, I'm sure, that in Russia, most of the majors are pulling out of Russia. So Shell, BP, Equinor, and others are moving their assets out of Russia because of political instability. And there obviously will need to be conversations on a global basis. We started having them with the International Energy Agency ministers yesterday about how we address the concerns that Europe has.
Well, thank you, Minister, and that's a good answer. I just wonder why we didn't have the foresight to look at that prior to this event. And I recognize as well that Shell and BP are now pulling out of Russia, but they largely pulled out of Canada when your government got elected and developed more restrictive policies on resource development here in Canada. And you look at the amount of investment that has flowed out of the Canadian resource development industry, and it is very illustrative of a restrictive policy where they cannot see the outcome of the dollars they spend. I'll let you comment on that before we go further.
As you will expect, I don't agree with what you've said. I think in the current context, both industry and Canadians generally want to ensure that there is an appropriate thinking about resource development and the economic opportunities, but also about environmental impacts and most particularly about climate change. And I think if you ask the CEO of Shell or you ask the CEO of BP, they would not agree with your characterization.
Well, no, I think they would actually, especially in Canada. But let's analyze that as far as the amount of finance that's coming out of the resource industry. If we actually take depreciation out of the equation, we are net negative as far as our capital stock in Canada goes, and that's been a consistent downturn since your government's been in power. How do you address that and suggest that we're actually facilitating natural resource development in this country, because it has been the backbone of our development in this country for a long time.
And natural resources have been and will continue to be an important part of the Canadian economy. Of course, we are going through an energy transition, and the nature of those resources are going to change over time. I will tell you that critical minerals is an enormous opportunity for this country going forward. Hydrogen is an enormous opportunity for this country going forward. But we also have to address carbon emissions, and that is something that unfortunately the Conservative Party seems not to understand.
Minister, thank you. Let me move towards carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. As you know, in the last Parliament, I put forward a bill to get an investment tax credit for CCUS in Canada. I understand that the discussions are ongoing regarding whether we include enhanced oil recovery as part of the investment tax credit for carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. We are hearing many noises from your department that they are not going to include enhanced oil recovery. And may I suggest to you that excluding enhanced oil recovery will make us uncompetitive with the 45Q regime that is just south of our border here in the United States. So having paper that says you get an investment tax credit, which is uneconomic, is words on paper only. The money is going to flow where the economic opportunity arises, and we've already seen that over the last handful of years when more and more direct air capture technologies are being developed, projects are being implemented in the United States, and not as much in Canada, where we have sunk a lot of money, both public and private, into the development of this technology. Would you please assure this committee that you're not just dancing against the wind here, but you're actually going to implement an investment tax credit where we will get some economic benefit in Canada?
Well, as you will know, the investment tax credit is the purview of the Department of Finance. But I would tell you that globally, the International Energy Agency and other experts have said that it is an important component of a comprehensive approach to dealing with climate. It is not a climate plan, but it is an important component. We intend to move forward. We have made investments in this space. The Department of Finance has been out consulting on what that investment tax credit should look like, and we certainly see carbon capture and sequestration as being an important tool going forward.
And with that, we're out of time on the first.